It's ignorant to think that the ship girls you play with in Kantai Collection are the only ones that matter, especially since the major reason I myself stuck around with the game for so long has been the enemies. Yes, the Abyssal Fleet, also known as the Shinkaisai-kan. Dead sunken ship girls iconic for their horrifying gnashing teeth motif, and their distinctive lack of clothes. Their sole mission? While there's plenty of speculation as to why, with answers varying depending on who you ask, there will always be one constant. They will kill your currently healthy living ship girls at all costs, and with no mercy. Really, for a game centered around cute anime girls, marrying waifus, and moe animeisms, the enemies in this game are, well, kind of dark and genuinely creepy, and even a little sympathetic when you start delving deeper into what's going on with their designs. A bit of a mismatch if you ask me, but if that's the direction the game wanted to go with in its concept, well then I'm certainly game. And while I'm not the biggest fan of darkness and evil, I am a big proponent for the interesting and the artistic. I personally judge the enemy vessels on just how frightful they come across, and while sympathies may be expressed, the point here is scariness, since that's clearly what the game wants me to feel when I encounter them in battle. For the most part. It's like Silent Hill under the sea, and in a game meant to appeal to the Strike Witches crowd. These are my favorite enemy vessels from Kantai Collection. Number 6. So Class Submarine. I originally didn't mean to start this list off with debatably the least dressed humanoid enemy in the game, but well, here we are. Granted, I wouldn't be thinking about her lack of clothes myself if and when she's shoving an abyssal torpedo up my butt at 200 miles per hour, but the more perverted among you may disagree. To each their own. I just hope you've prepared your ship girls' anuses for a deep impact, bigger, longer, and more explosive than the one from the abyss in your pants. There are several classes of submarine that come from the deep sea, but I favor the So class far above the other two for her interesting and fitting squid motif. She's like if Ikamusume met the ring, I love it. Her little hat that may or may not be munching on her half-dead brains has a toned-down Woe class look too. It's like she's my own personal moe enemy vessel, so get your hands away from her. No, seriously, she has a tendency to be grabby. She might pull you down with her during one of her dives. Number 5. Harbor Princess. Okay, so we're not quite done with the potentially adorable enemies yet. With potentially grabby hands. Big, grabby hands. Come on, just imagine those monster hands with sterner eyebrows. Terrifying! I guess some people would understandably find more appeal in her boobs. Or the fact that she doesn't wear pants. Or maybe even the obviously phallic horn on her head. But me? I'll just focus on those hands. Those hands that could slash my whole torso open in a single angry swipe. Those hands that could crush me from just a hug gone wrong. It's funny that a lot of you guys seem to paint her as clumsy and helpless, because as soon as those eyebrows turn upside down, I wouldn't want to be the one who messed with the Hulk, you get what I'm saying? Number 4. Southern Ocean War Princess. Heavily implied to be the main villain of the game with her position as the final boss, and wielding 3 forms as opposed to the standard 2 forms of most boss girls, I chose her final form, her princess form, for its notion of desperation to kill the ship girls, no matter the cost. Even to her very last strand of clothing! Seriously though, her arms become nothing more than rows of nightmare teeth and BFGs, and the fact that she's not wearing any clothes to boot, just outright nothing, is pretty obvious symbolism for her absolute insistence and dedication to destroying your ship girls. Her psychotic resolve is shown bare before you as a player. Yeah, I'm probably giving the artist too much credit for a design that very likely had fan service first and foremost in mind, but that's not going to stop me from finding something interesting to take away from it, so long as it makes sense. Number 3. Battleship Symbiotic Princess. One of the most interesting enemies at face value in the game, this girl's deal is both unique and rather strange. She has a matrix plug inserted into the back of her neck that tethers her to a hulking, drooling beast composed of purely teeth, guns, and muscle. Now, this could easily be observed in a number of ways. For starters, is the girl acting as bait for the beast in some way, so that it can feed? Or does the beast act like a bodyguard for the girl? Perhaps it's both. This could easily be looked at as symbolic in some way too, like a classic Beast in the Harlot scenario, or maybe Beauty and the Beast, and their symbiotic relationship is actually completely willing and romantic. Maybe it's even going so far as to be symbolism for the relationship between you, the Admiral, and your beloved waifu ship girl, like it's painting you as some sort of monster when seen through the lens of the Abyss. Also, what's the deal with the developers of the game throwing her at us in just about every single event since her debut? Maybe I'm just reading too much into this. Let's move on. Number 2. Midway Princess. Oh boy, it's time for a story. It was down to the very last several minutes of the Christmas event of 2013, and I had enough resources, just enough, for one final run on the E3 boss map. One more kill was all I needed to take down Fog Congo and complete the event for good, and the run was going well. Until my Akagi took heavy damage on the pre-boss node while everybody else was still green and ready to go, forcing me to make a difficult decision. Would I risk my Akagi's life after raising her for so many levels up to that point for the potential to get that last strike on the end boss and claim Shioi as my prize? There were several ways that fight could have gone, but I went through none of them. I left the event, it ended there, and I spared my Akagi's life in that very last moment. Now, this is relevant because many player accounts have stated that Midway Princess is in fact supposed to represent Akagi, one of the very few enemies in the game that is meant to represent a sunken version of a specific ship girl. For me though, this princess isn't an enemy, but a sign of what could have haunted me many months later. The horrific thorny mouth brace keeping her from her gluttonous eating habits, the red varicose veins that outright look like blood dripping down her skin, revealing an unspoken sign of pain and discomfort. And all the while, her consistently apathetic expression that implies a lack of energy and happiness. This is the kind of stuff that spooks me to no end, and yet leaves me infinitely curious at the same time. Suffice to say, this is the one enemy in the game that I would not want to fight. For sympathetic reasons. I would want to save her, not kill her. And frankly, I didn't. The summer 2014 event where she first appeared, I quit after E2. Willfully. Will I get over this with time? Maybe. But I still wanted to share this memory and these feelings with all of you. Oh, wait a minute. I think I forgot about number 1. Finally, number 1. Ray-class Aviation Battleship. It's as I said from the very beginning of this video, my main criteria for the enemy vessels is and always will be scariness. Sympathy may win out in the end sometimes, but it is secondary when considering that there wouldn't be any challenge to KanColle without some truly terrifying baddies. Especially when the game plays on your expectations and sympathies by dangling a cute young girl in front of you, only to have her actually be some twisted, deformed serpentine creature who's gonna peel your face off. Surprise! She's from hell! Design-wise, Ray Class is perfect. Human up to a certain point before her coat acts like a sensor bar, then revealing her true monstrous nature underneath. Another instance of obvious but effective symbolic significance. The fact that she's hooded in particular also alludes to this nature extremely well. Also, hooded figures are naturally scarier, and I really dig hoods myself, so there's that too. Not to mention, adding to the notion of naturally scarier, she's a wide-eyed grinner too, because she's just so happy to ruin your day. The fact that she keeps her coat open like she does is probably just there for fan service, but combined with the fact that her character portrait shows her saluting to you provides a kind of cunning mocking factor into her appearance. Like, she knows you can't beat her, but hey, you're certainly welcome to try. She's even handy enough to give you a bullseye. And that brings me to my last major point. If you aren't prepped to the teeth to fight this little monster, then you ain't gonna beat her. Period. Every bout against even just one of her is the equivalent of fending off a mini-boss. With an armor level that no Sanshiki is going to save you from, armed with guns that are on par with what the bosses themselves have, planes that are within the same league as WoW class, and in greater number. And she can even fire torpedoes with the same level of power as the So class I mentioned earlier. I'm grateful that she only appears in the final extra mission of the game, and particularly grateful that she has yet to show up on any of the event maps. Being an insane, versatile terror of the sea with legitimately terrifying style, Rei class may be my favorite enemy in KanColle, but like any great enemy, I ultimately feel much better off keeping my distance. In the end, it's not at all certain exactly what drives these sunken ship girls to fight the ones that live on your side. The answer could range from a simple revenge plot to a tragic infatuation with their former admiral that won't allow them to stay dead, to perhaps some twisted scenario of it turning out you've been the bad guy all along. And frankly, we may never actually get a clear-cut answer. It's really jarring to have a game initially portray itself as cutesy and shallow, when in reality there's a vast layer of intrigue and mystery hidden underneath that's admittedly very hard to overlook. Maybe it was a mistake, or accidental, or perhaps even outright intentional, because, hey, that's anime for you, always trying to be deep, even in the most awkward of places. But actually, I really truly like it in this case. I may have come floating into KanColle so long ago for the cuddly cozy ship girls, but it wasn't long before I became entrenched, thanks to the strange curiosity that was what lied beneath in the abyss. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, all music credits are listed below in the description, and remember to keep your girls, and yourselves, safe out there in the field, fellow admirals.